The engine of the Rolls-Royce purred so softly it barely made a sound. Yet every person at the gas station froze when it rolled to a stop. Morning light flashed across polished silver, and the driver's window began to lower. The worker standing by pump 3 felt his chest tighten. Yesterday had cost him everything. Today, something impossible was about to happen. If stories about unexpected kindness and human connection move you, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Tales. Tap like if moments like this matter to you, and let us know your thoughts in the comments as we go along. Now let me tell you how this moment came to be. The gas station sat on the edge of a quiet Midwestern town, the kind of place where the same cars came through every week and strangers rarely stayed strangers for long. The worker had been there almost 3 years, working the early shifts because it paid a few cents more and because he liked watching the town wake up. He wasn't chasing big dreams. He just wanted stability, rent paid on time, groceries without stress, maybe enough left over to fix the dent in his old pickup. He took pride in small things, keeping the pumps clean, remembering which customers liked their receipt and which didn't, greeting everyone with the same calm smile, even on days when his back ached or his bank account hovered dangerously close to zero. Management liked him because he never caused problems. He followed rules until the night he didn't. It was late, just before closing. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, and the store smelled like coffee that had been sitting too long on the warmer. A tired-looking sedan pulled up, coughing slightly as it stopped. A woman stepped out, her shoulders slumped, her movements careful. In the back seat, a little girl slept, curled against the door, her jacket bunched up as a pillow. The worker noticed the woman's eyes, first red shiny, the kind of eyes that belonged to someone holding it, together by a thread. She came inside and asked for $15 on pump 2. Her voice was quiet, embarrassed, like she was apologizing for needing fuel at all. He rang it up and watched her dig through her purse. Receipts spilled out. Loose change clinked onto the counter. She counted once, then again, her hands shaking. She was $3 short. She swallowed hard and whispered that she could put something back. Maybe only 12. She explained without looking up that she just needed to get home. Payday was tomorrow. Her daughter had been sick. The hospital visit had wiped out what little cushion she had. The worker felt that familiar knot of empathy twist in his stomach. He'd been there, standing at counters, praying the total would somehow change. He glanced at the clock, at the quiet store, at the sleeping child outside who had no idea how close her mother was to breaking down. Policy was clear. No exceptions. No free fuel. Cameras watched everything. He knew that. He also knew what it felt like to need help and not get it. So he made a choice that took less than a second and would follow him for weeks. He told her it was fine. He keyed in the amount, $15. He slid the receipt across and told her to get home safe. The woman stared at him, confused. She said she couldn't accept it. He told her she wasn't. He said she could pay it forward someday, to someone else who needed it. Her eyes filled instantly. She covered her mouth, nodded, and whispered thank you like it was a prayer. She left quickly, wiping her face before getting into the car, as if afraid that staying too long might shatter the moment. The worker watched the taillights disappear down the road and felt something warm settle in his chest. It felt right. It felt human. The next morning, his manager called him into the office. The camera footage had been reviewed. The numbers didn't add up. There was no anger in the manager's voice, just disappointment mixed with obligation. Rules were rules. The worker tried to explain. The sickness, the child, the missing $3. The manager listened, nodded slowly, and said he understood, but understanding didn't change policy. By noon, the worker was unemployed. He packed his things in a cardboard box that once held windshield washer fluid, his name tag, a half-used notebook, a photo of his dad he kept in his locker for luck. He walked out under the same buzzing lights he'd worked beneath for years, feeling smaller with every step. That night he sat in his apartment, staring at the wall. Fear crept in quietly. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Jobs weren't plentiful. He replayed the moment over and over. Part of him wondered if kindness was a luxury he couldn't afford. Another part refused to regret it. The next morning he woke early out of habit. With nowhere to be, he still pulled on his jacket and went for a walk. He passed the gas station out of reflex, then stopped. A familiar smell of fuel and coffee drifted toward him, and for a second he considered turning away. That was when the Rolls-Royce pulled in. It didn't belong in that parking lot. Its paint gleamed like liquid metal. The tires barely made a sound on the concrete. Customers paused mid-step. A delivery driver leaned against his truck, staring openly. The worker stood across the street, heart pounding. Curiosity pulled him closer despite himself. He watched as the driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, dressed simply, no flash, no rush. He looked around, then directly at the worker. The man smiled and waved him over. Confused and cautious, the worker crossed the street. The man introduced himself calmly and asked if he was the one who had worked the register the night before last. The worker nodded, bracing himself for something unpleasant. Maybe this was a corporate auditor. Maybe he was in trouble all over again. Instead, the man asked if they could talk. They stood by the luxury car while traffic rolled past. The man explained that he'd been looking for him since early morning. He said he'd heard about what happened. The worker's stomach dropped. He started to apologize, to explain again, but the man raised a hand gently. The man told him about a call he'd received 2 nights ago from his sister. She'd been crying. She'd told him about a stranger at a gas station who'd helped her when she was short on money and too proud to ask. She'd told him about driving home safely, about her daughter sleeping peacefully in the back seat, about feeling seen for the first time in months. The man paused, swallowing hard, and said that his sister hadn't known he was wealthy. She hadn't known the kind of car he drove or the influence he had. She'd only known kindness. The worker felt his eyes burn. The man continued, saying he'd learned that the worker had been fired because of that kindness. He said that didn't sit right with him. Not at all. He said that people who acted with compassion when it cost them something were rare, and rare things were valuable. He reached into his jacket and handed the worker an envelope. Inside was a check that made the worker's hands tremble. Enough to cover rent for months. Enough to breathe again. Enough to remind him that goodness wasn't always punished. But that wasn't all. The man explained that he owned several local businesses and was opening another nearby. He said he needed someone trustworthy, someone who treated people like people, not transactions. He offered the worker a job on the spot with better pay and real benefits. The world seemed to tilt. The gas station, the Rolls-Royce, the fear of the last 24 hours all blurred together. The worker could barely speak. He managed a thank you that came out rough and broken. The man smiled again and said that the real thanks belonged to him. He said that $15 had bought more than gas. It had bought dignity, safety, hope, things you couldn't put a price on. Word spread quickly around town. Customers who'd known the worker from the gas station stopped him on the street to congratulate him. Some admitted they'd been short once too, hoping for mercy they never received. Others said they'd start paying closer attention to the people behind the counter, the ones who made their days easier without being noticed. The worker started his new job the following week. He carried the lesson with him everywhere. He treated employees with patience. He listened when customers spoke. He kept a small fund aside for moments when rules collided with humanity. And sometimes late at night, he'd think about that tired woman and her sleeping child. He never saw them again. He didn't need to. Knowing they made it home was enough. Kindness doesn't always come back wrapped in luxury cars or job offers. Most of the time it comes quietly, if at all. But that doesn't make it any less powerful. One small act can ripple outward in ways we'll never fully see, touching lives we'll never meet. So the next time you're faced with a choice between what's easy and what's right, remember this story. Remember that compassion has a way of finding its path back to us, sometimes when we need it most. And if you've witnessed or been part of a moment of kindness, share it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.